Hi everyone, I hope you're having an awesome day. In this video, we'll be doing the main assembly of Maverick's F-18. I don't think you guys need or want to see me cut, file, and glue every single part, so I'm going to focus on parts that I think are challenging, or where I can show a useful tip or technique. So with that in mind, let's start building. First is the cockpit. The cockpit was super easy, so I didn't bother filming it. But there are a few things I'd like to point out. The seat is supposed to be flat anthracite. I don't know what that is, but the picture on the box shows it looking like a dark gunmetal. So I improvised and found some flat gray primer and sprayed the seat with that. And I think it looks good enough. While the seat was drying, I applied the decals, and then I glued the panel, the stick, and the seat into place. Now, the instructions say the seat cushions are supposed to be olive, the seat belts light gray, the buckles silver. But that's just too tedious for me, so I skipped it. Also, the little ejection handle is supposed to be yellow with little black stripes. I have no idea how I would do that, so I skipped that too. Once the canopy's in place, probably won't be able to see too much of those details anyways, so for me, it's time to move on. The first somewhat challenging part of this build is going to be the air intake ducts. The first problem was that the attachment to the sprue tree was pretty thick, and even though I tried to be careful cutting it, it left a pretty big mark. The good news is the emery boards worked pretty good to smoothen it out. And then I hit it with some 220 grit sandpaper I had laying around, so I think it's good now. You don't want to go too far with it because then you can start altering the fit of the parts if you remove too much material. Now, the way this joint is designed, there is a high potential of getting glue smears if you move or wiggle the part around. So what I did was I spent some time figuring out the best way to grab the parts and rehearsed moving them together to find a way to get it on there with no wiggling or moving, so that when I have it done with the glue, I can just get it home real quickly and easily and smoothly. So I figured out that for me the best grip is thumb and index finger of each hand. Touch these ring fingers together for just feel, and then just guide it home. Pin first and then get the rest of it in place. So I rehearsed it a few times. I think I have it down. So now I'm going to apply the tiniest bit of glue that I can and see if we can get this glued without anything smearing. So here's my super glue with the applicator. Okay, so now the moment of truth. Let's see how this works. Pin first, and get the rest of it home, and then just hold it. Looks pretty good. The alignment looks good. I don't want to press it too hard because then I might slide it out of alignment. Just hold it like that. And I think it's already bonded. And you can see that seam there looks pretty aligned. I think that's going to be hidden on the full assembly, so we may not have to hit it with seam filler. And this is going to go against the fuselage, so I think this is good. So the other side's similar, so we'll do that one off camera and move on to the next phase after that. The next item are the fans that go on the front of the GE F414 engines. I painted the fan blades with this folk art metallic nickel that I got from Michael's for around $3 a bottle. And then after that, I applied a black water-based acrylic wash to the spaces between the blades to make them stand out a little bit more. And I think it came out all right. When you glue these to the back of the air intake ducts, you can hardly see them, which is one of the reasons why I try not to expend too much effort on certain details that I think really won't stand out. But this was really fast and easy to do anyways, so it was worth it. I glued up the air intake assemblies and there were no issues. It went pretty smooth. But when I did the test fit up to the lower fuselage, I ran into a small problem. The main wheel wells have the hydraulic tubing and the wiring harnesses molded in, and I want to paint those to bring out the detail. But when the air intake assemblies are in place, they block a lot of the access and make the painting a lot more difficult. So I'm going to mask off the surrounding areas and paint the wheel wells first. So that's a change in my plan, but sometimes that's the way it goes. Sometimes you need to react and adjust based on the conditions. So the next thing I'll do is paint the wheel wells. Okay, so I have the lower fuselage masked off with some blue painter's tape and some saran wrap. I have some flat white primer here that I've been shaking for a couple minutes, so it's ready to go. So I'm just going to spray this, hopefully not getting any on the camera, and we'll see how it goes. Okay, I think that's enough, so we'll let it dry and start painting the tubing. Now that the white paint is dry, I'm going to apply a light wash to the lower surfaces to just add a little contrast to the whole effect. So I'm going to use this acrylic water-based raw umber color. It's like a brown. I find it useful for a lot of washes because sometimes black has a little bit too much contrast for me, and I like things to be a little subtle sometimes. So I'm just going to get a little bit of the raw umber on my brush, and then I have this little pipette here. I'm going to add some water, and I'm going to make a pretty thin wash for this. I want it to go on very gradually. I don't want a dark effect on this. So you just mix it up here very thin. And I don't want too much on the brush at first, so I'm just going to squeeze some off and then just touch some of the sections, and that's too dark right there. I'm going to add some more water. Let's see what it looks like now. Okay, that's a little better. So I'm just going to hit the lower areas a little bit. And that looks pretty good for the right side wheel well. The rest will be pretty similar, so I'm going to do that off camera, but you get the general idea. It's a pretty easy technique. Once you get the consistency that works for you, you just apply it gradually. And as it dries, it tends to lighten up anyway, so it's kind of hard to overdo it. So now the wash is dried. Applied the wash to this side, and when the wash dries, it tends to lighten up and get less contrast, which is what I want here. I want just a little bit of contrast to bring out the details. The other side I haven't done yet, so you can see the difference. So hopefully it helps to bring out some of the details and just makes it look a little more like an actual working airplane. The wheel well painting is complete, and I'm pretty happy with the way it came out. The washes bring out the details of the tubing, and I don't think I overdid the washes, which for me sometimes is a problem. So I'm pretty happy with that. The next step is to do the test fit of the air intakes, and unfortunately there's some pretty big seams that I'm going to have to hit with seam filler. This area here, that area here, the wing root, and this area here. There's a pretty big gap where it meets the fuselage. This area here and up here, it's just not fitting right. So I'm gonna have to do some filing to get it to snug up to the fuselage. So I'm gonna do the filing, and then we'll glue them in place and then do the seam filler. In order to get the air intake assembly to fit better, I sanded this edge here and these ribs and this surface here. Now when I test fit the air intake assembly to the lower fuselage, I have an improvement on this seam here. It looks pretty good. These two parts here also snug together pretty nice. The wing root gap has improved. It's a little bit smaller. And this seam and this seam also show some improvement. I did sand this surface to get them more level with this surface. When I'm sanding a final painted surface, I find it best to use 600 grit to remove material and then finish it with 3000 grit. And what I found is that generally leaves a nice surface that blends together with the unsanded surfaces. I finished sanding and fitting the air intake assemblies, and these surfaces form part of the wheel well. The easiest way for me to paint them was with a brush, so I used a flat tip brush with the craft acrylic. I used the acrylic right out of the tube in thin coats. It took me about 4 coats to get to this level, and as you can see, it's not great, but once I apply the wash and once it's in place, I don't think it'll be very noticeable. So I'm going to apply the wash, then we're going to fit and glue these to the fuselage. The way this air intake assembly fits into the fuselage is kind of tricky. The rear of the duct has to go through this opening. Then it clears this step, and then it slides rearward. And then this portion has to tuck up under the wing root and snap up into place. And this portion here snaps in like that. So if I pre-glue this, and with all this sliding and moving, I think I'll get glue smears all over the place. So now that it's in place, I'm going to apply the glue with a toothpick at certain places and hope for the best. The first place I'm going to glue is this portion here. So I'm going to spread it as far as I can so I can get in here with my super glue applicator and just apply a thin bead along the edge. And then snap it into place. And I think it's going to work out okay. I glued the left and right air intake assemblies to the fuselage, and as you can see, there's some pretty big seams here and here on both sides that I'm going to have to fill. Also, the wing roots need to be filled, and the rear of the fuselage here and here. I'm going to continue with the rest of the assembly. The rest of the assembly looks pretty routine, so I'm going to get through that, and then I'm going to start filling the seams and get ready for painting. I got the top and bottom halves of the fuselage glued together. It was pretty straightforward. I just applied super glue along this edge here, all the way out to the end of the wing, along the back of the wing, and at the back of the fuselage. Did both sides. Then carefully lowered the bottom fuselage into place. It snaps flush here and here on the front wing leading edge. There's a flat flush surface here, and it snaps together at the back of the fuselage. And it went together pretty smoothly, no glue smearing, so it worked out pretty good. Then I held it together with these clothespins for a few minutes. I got this 50 pack of clothespins from Walmart for $2, so that's a great value. While the glue was drying, I put together the front fuselage nose, and when it comes to seams, there are two defects that I generally have to deal with. One is gaps, which is pretty easy to correct with seam filler. Steps are a little bit harder to deal with. It's an uneven match between the two surfaces at the joint. So what I did here was I sanded it with 60 grit to try to get it as flush as possible. Then I finished it up with 3000 grit to try to get it as smooth as possible for the paint. So now I'm going to assemble this to the fuselage and we'll continue the build. Fitting the front nose portion of the fuselage to the main fuselage is a bit tricky. It has to slide rearward, and the right side snaps in pretty easily, but then the left side you have to press in till it snaps like that. Then this back corner has to tuck in like that. So to do it with glue in place is going to be tricky, so I'm going to give that a try next. So here I'm going to apply the glue, and I got to apply just the barest amount. Okay, so now we're going to try to position this. The right side is in. Now we have to snap this in. Then the back half has to snap. And I got it. Wow. A little bit of glue extruded out there on the corner, but other than that, it looks good. So, not bad. I glued on the wingtips, which completes the main assembly for Maverick's F-18 and marks the end of this episode. The vertical and horizontal stabilizers, landing gear and doors, exhaust nozzles, canopy, and stores will be painted and attached later. I think this was an easy build with a few moderately difficult parts. I think beginners can build this if they pay attention to the following. Test fit the parts and understand how they go together before applying glue. Trim, file, and sand the parts to ensure proper fit. Apply glue carefully and sparingly to avoid smears. Ensure part position and alignment are good while the glue is setting. In the next video, I will do the seam filling and main painting. Until then, take care and have a great week.